Now to a political scandal of another kind. This is part of the maiden speech of an Australian senator that's once again fled debate about immigration down under.
The final solution to the immigration problem, of course, is a popular vote.
Fraser Anning, a state of Queensland senator in the Katter's Australian Party, is calling for an end to Muslim immigration. His speech prompting a response from the country's Prime Minister, who called it racism and stupidity. Anning then refusing to apologise for invoking the term the final solution to the immigration problem, the phrase in part used by Hitler, referring to his plan for Jewish genocide in World War II. In Parliament today, the country's political leaders uniting to heap condemnation on a speech Malcolm Turnbull warns is only helping the terrorists.
We are a nation that does not define its nationality, its identity, by reference to race or religion or cultural background or ethnic background. We define ourselves by commitment to shared political values of freedom, of democracy, and the rule of law. And people from every corner of the earth, from every religion or of none, and every race can connect, be inspired by, be part of those values. That is Australia.
Senior journalist from Channel 10 Australia, Hugh Riminton, joins me now from Sydney. Hugh, a pleasure to have you. Now, the White Australia policy, which effectively barred people of non-European descent from emigrating to Australia, was dismantled by the early 70s. How has its sentiment found its way back into political discourse in Australia?
Well, only very painfully and only at the periphery, it has to be said. This character, Fraser Anning, is in many ways an accidental politician. He only got 19 direct votes. It's hard to believe a number could be that small in the state of Queensland at the last election. He's there by accident because someone higher up on his party list was disqualified from Parliament because it was found he had a British citizenship. You're not allowed to have dual citizenship and sit in the Parliament. So he had to leave, and it fell to the next person on the list to then go into Parliament. That was Fraser Anning. He was rated so poorly by that party leader that even before he had walked into the Parliament, he had been sacked essentially from that party. So he was standing there as an independent. Many people see that he has gone out to try to make a controversial speech to get noticed in the hope that he can get some name recognition before the next election and improve on his 19 votes. Nevertheless, it's been a galvanising moment, and I think you mentioned both of the chambers of the Australian Parliament almost immediately passed motions condemning the speech and reaffirming the non-racial, non-religious nature of the Australian immigration policy. And that was climaxed by a hug, a lasting hug on the floor of the Parliament between one Jewish MP, a member of the Cabinet, Josh Frydenberg, and a Muslim MP, Ed Husic, whose family hails from Bosnia.
All right, but talk us through at least the social landscape in Australia. How much support does he and Katter's Australia Party actually have in Australia?
Well, Katter's Australia Party was, until Senator Anning went and joined them after being dumped by the other party, had only one other MP, and he's an eccentric sort of big cowboy-hatted character from the far north Queensland area, where ironically it has very low levels of immigration from anywhere up there. The population tends to be drifting out of those extreme regional and rural areas. There is some support. There is an element of racism in Australia, and it does tend to dwell most obviously in rural and regional areas, it seems. But polls that are made of Australians about how they feel about immigration on the basis of race suggest that there's somewhere in the order of 20% of people who have concerns on some level about race or migration. Islamic terrorism has obviously been an issue here as it has been elsewhere, and that has fueled some of that. But overall, there's a great deal of bipartisan support. This will go on, however, at the fringes. There's no doubt about that.
Certainly. What at least does this foreshadow in terms of the next election?
Well, the next election is extremely tight. At the moment, the government, which is run by Malcolm Turnbull, it's a centre-right government, is in trouble. It only got through the last election and held on by one single seat in the main chamber, the House of Representatives. And it is felt that the next election will be more or less decided in the state of Queensland. That's where most of the marginal seats are being held. And that's where a lot of this certainly the most vocal elements of this racist element has come to the fore. There is generally a concern about the rates of immigration per se. The population of the country has been growing far faster than previous projections, and there is almost a bipartisan view that something might have to be done. Just about sheer numbers of people coming into Australia. That's unplanned at the moment, but the argument that it should be based on race or religion does not have wide support.
All right, Hugh Riminton, appreciate that insight from Sydney, Australia there.